We often believe that standing under the dazzling stage lights is the ultimate dream for any young black talent in Hollywood. We project the golden illusion onto promising child stars, expecting them to easily secure a picture-perfect family or a glamorous marriage as they age. But for many, this shimmering limelight is nothing more than a survival strategy, a suffocating gilded cage hiding an earth-shattering secret. Imagine fame's crushing pressure on a young soul realizing their assigned gender is a silent predator, slowly devouring their true identity. To the industry, walking away from guaranteed stardom to transition was a death sentence, a guaranteed path to public disgrace and becoming cheap tabloid fodder. Yet, these 17 extraordinary black icons chose to face the systemic blade of racial prejudices and the fear of stigma head-on, shedding their past to live out their true gender identities. They shattered the invisible walls of their double life, enduring raw agony not just to survive, but to be fiercely reborn. Let's uncover their spectacular, untold journeys. Octavia St. Laurent. A single, definitive choice in the late 1980s triggered a tidal wave that permanently altered her destiny. As a teenager boasting delicate features and undeniable star quality, she was meticulously positioned to achieve the golden illusion, a traditional, highly lucrative career as a mainstream black male actor. She could have easily secured a forgiving spotlight and a picture-perfect family narrative if she just played by the rules. Instead, she made the monumental decision to reject that safety net. Rather than burying her earth-shattering secret behind invisible walls, she funneled every meager dime from grueling part-time jobs into handmade designer outfits and crude hormone therapies. This one choice unleashed a merciless foe. By boldly transitioning to chase her ultimate dream of becoming a supermodel, she willingly subjected herself to the systemic blade of an era that viewed her very existence as a public disgrace. She endured the raw agony of societal exile to physically construct her true self. Yet, this ripple effect catapulted her into immortality through the 1990 documentary Paris is Burning. She proved that the most vital choice a human can make is to shatter the double life and step into their own authentic light. The physical perfection she so fiercely pursued through fashion and ballroom bravado soon morphed into a completely different kind of artistic rebellion, finding its chaotic, bizarre home within the avant-garde underground of Los Angeles. The Lady Chablis. If you ever stood in the suffocating clubs of Savannah in the 1980s, you couldn't help but be hypnotized. I remember watching her glide through the room carrying the scent of heavy pollen and unyielding defiance. Before becoming an icon basking in the forgiving spotlight, she was a highly promising teenage actor, a prodigy expected to ride the golden illusion of mainstream success. But that prepackaged future was a suffocating, invisible punishment. Instead of harboring an earth-shattering secret, she made a spectacular transition. From the crowd, we watched in awe as she poured every meager dime into glamorous gowns and crude hormone therapies, enduring the raw agony of untested medical risks just to shed her assigned vessel. In an era where the systemic blade of prejudice slashed at anyone daring to be different, her midnight appearances were a breathtaking rebellion. She weaponized her charm, eventually commanding global attention in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, proving she could forge her own crown from the ashes of a double life. When the neon signs eventually sputtered out and the club plunged into complete darkness, the radiant warmth of her absolute truth remained burned into our retinas. This same desperate hunger to shed an imposed skin would soon echo loudly onto the unforgiving concrete of New York's underground fashion district. Vaginal Davis. The entertainment machine is meticulously designed to chew up promising black child actors and spit them out as compliant commodities. Born in 1969, she possessed the razor-sharp talent to dominate the mainstream stages of What's. The system demanded she conform to the golden illusion of a traditional male star, threatening invisible punishment if she stepped out of line. But she refused to be a pawn. By shedding her assigned gender to become a defiant genderqueer icon, she intentionally threw herself onto the systemic blade of the 1980s Los Angeles art scene. Hollywood expected her earth-shattering secret to result in public disgrace and raw agony. Instead, she built a bizarre, powerful empire in the underground queer core clubs, weaponizing exaggerated makeup to challenge the fear of stigma. Fame's true price is exacted when we surrender our identity to appease the masses. The deafening, punk rock roar of those underground clubs eventually dissolved, leaving a profound void that would soon be filled by a maternal, protective grace anchoring the East Coast ballrooms. Avis Penn Davis. In 1995, the New York ballroom community wept uncontrollably, facing an unfillable void as they laid Avis to rest. Long before the merciless foe of mortality claimed this legendary matriarch, she was a commanding teenager mesmerizing local theater stages, undeniably primed for the golden illusion of a traditional acting career. She could have effortlessly secured a forgiving spotlight, burying her earth-shattering secret behind invisible walls to appease the industry. Instead, Avis shattered the double life. She willingly threw herself against the systemic blade of 1980s society, shedding her promising trajectory to be reborn as a proud transgender woman. Knowing intimately the fear of stigma and the raw agony inflicted upon her people, she transformed her home into a fortress, actively shielding shattered souls who were wasting away from brutal rejection. Her quiet yet indomitable dignity, forever preserved in the 1990 documentary Paris is Burning, proved she didn't need a scripted survival strategy to attain greatness. The physical body is agonizingly fragile and fame is fleeting, but a mother's fierce love outlives the cold earth. This profound maternal warmth, which once radiated exclusively through the darkest New York alleys, slowly morphed into a very different kind of fiery persistence that would eventually shatter the sterile, unforgiving lenses of primetime television cameras. Jasmine. I can still vividly recall watching that kid from across our dusty neighborhood street in the late 1970s. Her small feet relentlessly dancing to the muffled disco tunes pouring from a battered radio. We all knew she possessed an explosive, innate talent undeniably destined for the golden illusion of Hollywood stardom. Yet, even back then, I could sense a haunting, unfillable void in her eyes. She was harboring an earth-shattering secret, the burning desire to live as her true self. Rather than retreating behind invisible walls and succumbing to a double life dictated by the fear of stigma, Jasmine launched a relentless expedition into the heart of the industry. By the 1990s, I was watching her shatter television screens on hit shows like CSI and Nip/Tuck, defying an era where the systemic blade of racial prejudices typically relegated black trans women to the shadows as mere tabloid fodder. The industry expected her to face public disgrace and the raw agony of invisible punishment. Instead, she fiercely commanded the forgiving spotlight. During her standout role in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, she didn't settle for being a cheap punchline. She plunged into the deep psychology of her characters. When the massive, multi-million-dollar studio lights eventually plunge into complete darkness, her defiant authenticity remains a glowing ember that refuses to be extinguished. That same blazing refusal to conform to mainstream expectations soon leaped across the country, trading the sterile, high-budget lots of Los Angeles for the gritty, fiercely independent underground stages of a chaotic New York City. Marsha P. Johnson. The fragile, wilting flower crown floating on the freezing surface of the Hudson River in 1992 witnessed the final breath of a revolution. Before the merciless foe of a still unsolved, mysterious death claimed her, Marsha was a bright-eyed New Jersey prodigy, heavily expected to secure the golden illusion as a traditional mainstream actor. She could have easily chosen a double life, hiding her earth-shattering secret behind invisible walls to avoid the systemic blade of public disgrace. Instead, she famously rejected a major Hollywood role simply because the studio demanded she cut her hair and wear a male mask. The lucrative script was tossed aside, replaced by those signature flowers. By choosing to step completely out of the shadows, she endured the raw agony of poverty and the invisible punishment of being treated as cheap tabloid fodder by a prejudiced society. Yet, she found her forgiving spotlight not in glamorous box offices, but in cramped theatrical basements and gritty indie films, becoming the patron saint of the marginalized. That iconic flower crown felt the chilling speculation and perhaps her labored breathing in her tragic final moments. When the cold waters finally swallowed her reflection, the crown drifted away in absolute silence, a quiet testament to a star who chose a dangerous truth over a safe, picture-perfect lie. The chilling ripples of that tragic New York river eventually washed up on the bustling runways of the underground ballrooms, where another fiercely ambitious soul prepared to wage an all-out war against the industry's rigid gates. Dominique Jackson. Flashbulbs violently explode as she commands the red carpet, her statuesque frame draped in custom couture, projecting the ultimate golden illusion. As the fierce, untouchable icon of the hit series Pose, she appears to have been born directly into the forgiving spotlight. But to understand the true, staggering weight of her crown, you must look past the dazzling stage lights to the crushing darkness of her origins. Born in Trinidad and Tobago, she was a poised, highly promising teenager meticulously groomed by her community for a picture-perfect family and a safe, conventional future. The sudden drop occurred when she chose to embrace her earth-shattering secret. By deciding to live truthfully as a transgender woman, she subjected herself to the systemic blade of an aggressively conservative society. Fleeing her homeland, she traded her status for the raw agony of homelessness in America. Modeling agencies treated her existence as an invisible enemy, blatantly rejecting her and pushing her toward chilling speculation about her very survival. She endured the invisible punishment of being a black trans immigrant with absolutely no safety net, a merciless foe that would have easily broken a weaker spirit. Yet, Dominique weaponized her profound trauma. She didn't just survive the fear of stigma. She forged her painful history into a monumental survival strategy, breathing life into the legendary character Electra Abundance. What is the true value of fame if not to avenge the terrified child you once were? She proved that a phoenix can endure the absolute flames of exile and still forcefully conquer the world. This profound act of reclaiming one's narrative from the ashes of rejection didn't just transform high-fashion runways. It soon bled into the raw, unforgiving lens of independent documentary cinema, where a grieving soul prepared to use his own transition as a devastating weapon for justice. Yance Ford. The deafening applause inside the Dolby Theater in 2018 signaled the ultimate golden illusion. As the first openly transgender director ever nominated for an Academy Award, Yance stood in the forgiving spotlight, seemingly victorious. Yet, this monumental peak was built entirely upon a foundation of raw agony. He didn't reach this pinnacle by chasing a picture-perfect family narrative or hiding his earth-shattering secret behind a double life. Instead, he thrust himself onto the systemic blade of American racism to investigate his own brother's murder. Long before the red carpets, he was a promising Long Island teen who rejected the invisible punishment of living a lie. Rather than succumbing to the fear of stigma or allowing his brother's tragedy to become forgotten tabloid fodder, Yance wielded a camera like a scalpel. In the haunting documentary Strong Island, he dissected his own grief and transgender identity, using his literal flesh and blood to demand justice against an invisible enemy. What is the true value of a golden statue when the price of admission is the slaughtered body of your sibling? The camera lens that documented this profound, suffocating family grief would soon shatter entirely, giving way to the cold, glowing screens of a self-taught tech visionary, Angelica Ross. A quick scroll through her verified Instagram feed today projects the ultimate golden illusion. You see a flawless, picture-perfect Hollywood powerhouse draped in designer brands, commanding the forgiving spotlight on the sets of Pose and American Horror Story. But swipe past the polished filters, and that double life shatters to reveal an earth-shattering secret. Long before the viral red carpet moments, her reality was defined by raw agony. Growing up in 1990s Wisconsin, the fear of stigma and brutal racial prejudices acted as a silent predator, suffocating a brilliant teenager forced to build invisible walls just to survive. The systemic blade of society demanded she become tragic tabloid fodder, another marginalized soul wasting away in the shadows. Instead of succumbing to fame's crushing pressure or a pre-written survival strategy, she weaponized her isolation. During her most destitute days, she taught herself to code, digitally engineering trans tech to pull herself and her community out from an unfillable void. The millions of fans double-tapping her glamorous selfies truly know absolutely nothing about the agonizing psychological war their idol fought just to exist. This calculated resilience forged in the solitary glow of a computer monitor would soon transfer to the bustling sets of primetime television, where another rising prodigy was preparing to intentionally detonate his own guaranteed stardom. Marquise Vilson. Zoom in on the corners of a faded 1980s casting Polaroid. You see a coveted child actor with a camera-ready face, projecting the golden illusion of a future Hollywood princess. But look closer at the tightly clenched jawline and the hollow stare. This tension was the physical manifestation of a silent predator, the suffocating internal battle consuming his soul. Marquise harbored an earth-shattering secret, a fierce desire to live fully as a man, directly contradicting the picture-perfect trajectory society had violently imposed on him. Transitioning publicly when the systemic blade of prejudice treated black transgender individuals as mere tabloid fodder meant facing a cold stone wall of rejection. Confronting the paralyzing fear of stigma and the invisible punishment of starting from zero, he willingly sacrificed his existing limelight. Enduring this raw agony, he shattered his double life to deliver masterful performances in Tales of the City and Law and Order, SVU. The cold truth is that the fabricated persona must entirely die before the authentic artist can truly breathe. This radical act of burning down an established career to redefine manhood soon ignited a parallel revolution on mainstream broadcast television. Brian Michael Smith, a silent predator, stalked his psyche long before his historic casting on 911, Lone Star. The paralyzing terror of his earth-shattering secret being outed haunted every early audition room. As a Michigan prodigy, the industry offered the golden illusion of mainstream success, demanding he maintain a double life behind invisible walls. This psychological warfare acted as an invisible enemy, slowly eroding his spirit under fame's crushing pressure. The fear of stigma and racial prejudices dictated that transitioning would trigger public disgrace and a professional death sentence. Instead of wasting away in paranoia, he bravely executed his survival strategy: radical honesty. He dismantled the psychological ghost, becoming the first out black trans man in a regular network television role. The chilling reality is that a fabricated persona invariably murders the soul long before the body reaches the forgiving spotlight. This uncompromising destruction of predefined molds soon fractured the glossy illusions of reality television, setting the stage for a highly resilient runway muse. Isis King. Count the staggering metrics of her early survival. Countless terrifying nights facing rejection, zero safety nets, and a high probability of becoming a forgotten casualty of the systemic blade. As a 1980s prodigy, she was mathematically expected to maintain the golden illusion of a conventional male star. Revealing her earth-shattering secret, stepping out as a transgender woman, plummeted her social capital to absolute zero. The invisible punishment of racial prejudices and the fear of stigma ensured her reality was measured in ounces of raw agony. Yet, she weaponized these exact statistics of despair. She transformed the brutal societal rejection, a silent predator meant to destroy her, into an unprecedented springboard. Defying impossible odds, she shattered reality TV ceilings and secured heavyweight roles on massive platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime. The cruel arithmetic of fame proves society only celebrates the victor, ignoring the agonizing calculations required to survive. This calculated march from absolute destitution to global streaming dominance immediately paved a glittering path onto the fiercely competitive theatrical stages. Peppermint. The blinding marquise of Broadway proudly display her name, projecting the golden illusion of a history-making icon. Starring in Netflix's survival of the thickest seems like an effortless waltz under the dazzling stage lights. Yet, this peak brutally contrasts with her agonizing origins. As a multi-talented 1980s prodigy, the industry offered a mainstream throne, demanding she hide her earth-shattering secret behind invisible walls. Claiming her authentic identity required a terrifying sudden drop. Shedding her assigned body meant deliberately walking onto the systemic blade of racial prejudices and the fear of stigma. Society heavily expected this bold transition to cause public disgrace and endless raw agony. Instead, she weaponized the rejection, turning deep skepticism into the exact fuel for her unprecedented Broadway reign. What is the actual worth of a standing ovation if the crowd is merely applauding a ghost? This elegant, triumphant reclamation of traditional theater space soon exploded into a much louder, self-made digital empire built entirely on raw, unfiltered defiance. T.S. Madison. The entertainment machine is systematically engineered to crush anyone defying the golden illusion. As a sharply talented 1980s prodigy, the industry demanded she act as a compliant pawn. Revealing her earth-shattering secret was designed by the elite to trigger swift, invisible punishment. The systemic blade of the era dictated that a transitioning black woman should endure the raw agony of absolute exile and become marginalized tabloid fodder. Instead of shrinking under fame's crushing pressure, she forcefully overturned the entire board. Refusing to beg for mainstream validation, she weaponized her explosive, gritty authenticity to build an independent empire, eventually forcing the elite studio gates open for roles in Zola and Brothers. The fatal flaw of Hollywood's systemic machine is constantly underestimating a self-forged queen. This aggressive dismantling of institutional gates soon yielded to a quiet, protective sanctuary built to harbor shattered youth on New York's ruthless streets. Angie's Stravaganza, the battered, flickering neon sign outside the House of Stravaganza witnessed the profound raw agony of an entire generation. Before it illuminated her sanctuary, it watched her as a highly promising teenager, undeniably primed for the golden illusion of a traditional acting career. But the systemic blade of 1980s New York demanded she hide her earth-shattering secret to avoid public disgrace. Instead of erecting invisible walls, she chose a profound revolution of kinship. The sign hummed quietly as she traded her mainstream potential to become a fierce mother, shielding the shattered orphans of the LGBTQ+ community from the fear of stigma and brutal racial prejudices. It observed her gilding their dreams with pure love while defying an era rife with hate. When the sign finally burned out, its heavy silence echoed the irreplaceable loss of her maternal warmth. This fierce dedication to reclaiming dignity within the underground ballrooms soon translated into a revolutionary rhythm, where physical movement itself became a powerful weapon to snatch glamour back from the elite. Paris Dupree. I was squeezed into the suffocating crowd of a Harlem ballroom when I first saw her. Originally a child prodigy expected to chase the golden illusion of mainstream acting, she refused to hide her earth-shattering secret behind invisible walls. When she came out as a transgender woman, society hurled the systemic blade of racial prejudices to inflict public disgrace. Instead of crumbling under the fear of stigma, I watched her turn rejection into a fierce weapon. She ripped poses straight from elite fashion magazines, violently translating them into the legendary Vogue dance. She literally stole the forgiving spotlight back from a society treating her community like an invisible enemy. When the ballroom lights finally power down, the rhythm of her proud strides remains our cultural heartbeat. This kinetic theft of glamour soon empowered a regal matriarch to choose authenticity over financial survival. Pepper LaBeija. Zoom in on the single-chipped faux gemstone remaining on the breathtakingly glamorous gown in the documentary Paris is Burning. That faux gemstone reveals the true price of the golden illusion she created. As a promising child actress of the 1950s, society demanded she live a double life, leveraging her natural beauty for traditionally male leading roles. Revealing her shocking secret of being a transgender woman meant she was ready to face the system's blade in an age of hatred. She endured the extreme pain of abject poverty, proudly choosing hardship over the invisible punishment of wearing a male mask. Instead of succumbing to fear of stigma or begging for public forgiveness, she built the LaBeija brand into an impenetrable fortress for her community. The harsh truth remains: true dignity is not defined by the wealth in your pocket, but by the unwavering dignity you maintain when the world desperately tries to take it away from you. This is about 17 black child actors who became gay without knowing it. They shattered the golden illusion to claim true freedom. Who inspired you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see more videos.